Marcus had always thought of himself as rational. He didn't believe in ghosts, curses, or any of the things his coworkers whispered about the hospital's night shift. For 5 years, he'd walked the halls as a security guard, checking doors, responding to patient alarms, escorting lost visitors, and sometimes calming down patients who had wandered from their rooms. He told himself it was just a job, until he drew the basement rotation. The basement was different. It smelled of mildew and cleaning chemicals, and the lights always seemed weaker down there, humming faintly as if they might flicker out at any moment. Worst of all was the morgue, which had officially been decommissioned years ago after the hospital expanded. The drawers where bodies were once kept remained, most of them open like yawning mouths in the dim light. The place hadn't been used in over a decade, but Marcus knew the stories. Guards claimed alarms went off down there for no reason. Some swore they heard noises, knocks, scratching, even voices. Marcus never paid much attention to their tales. Until the night he had to see for himself. It was just past 3 a.m. when his radio crackled with a soft alert, motion detected, basement corridor. He sighed. Faulty wiring, he thought. It always was. Grabbing his flashlight, he descended the stairwell. The air grew colder with each step, and by the time he reached the basement level, he could see his own breath. He told himself it was the ventilation system. Hospitals were full of drafts. The corridor stretched long and narrow, pipes running overhead like veins. His boots echoed on the concrete floor. When he reached the morgue door, he paused. The handle felt icy against his palm, colder than the surrounding air. Pushing it open, the smell hit him, stale, like damp cloth that had been sealed too long. He swept the flashlight beam across the room. The empty drawers gaped at him. Dust coated everything, undisturbed. But then he heard it, a faint, metallic rattle. He spun toward the sound. One drawer, half shut, shivered slightly, as if something pressed against it from the inside. Marcus froze, his chest tight, pulse hammering. He told himself it was air pressure, maybe a draft moving the drawer. But the sound changed. Soft scratching came from inside. Like nails against metal. He raised his flashlight, his hand trembling, and stepped closer. The scratching stopped. Swallowing hard, he gripped the handle and yanked the drawer open in one swift motion. It was empty. Just a hollow, dust-lined space. Relief flooded him for a moment, until the flashlight flickered. The room plunged into darkness for less than a second, but in that instant, Marcus swore he heard something else. Breathing. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Right behind him. The light snapped back on, and the room was empty. He didn't wait. Marcus bolted, slamming the morgue door behind him and racing up the stairs 2 at a time. Even then, as he reached the main floor, the sound of breathing lingered in his ears, following him up through the dark. He never took the basement shift again. Janelle had always thought working the night shift at the gas station would be boring, not terrifying. She took the job because it was quiet, and she needed the money. The gas station sat on the outskirts of town, surrounded by long stretches of highway and farmland. Most nights, she only saw a handful of truckers, night shift workers grabbing coffee, or the occasional group of teenagers looking for snacks. It was lonely, but easy. That night, the store was unusually still. The hum of the coolers and the buzz of the overhead lights filled the silence. Janelle leaned on the counter, scrolling through her phone to pass the time. Then, the chime of the door startled her. She looked up, expecting a customer, and saw a man. He was tall, wearing an old jacket, his face half hidden beneath the hood. He walked past the aisles and stopped near the coffee station. At first, nothing seemed strange. Plenty of people came in for coffee, even in the dead of night. But he didn't move. He didn't pour a cup, didn't look around, didn't even shift his weight. He just stood there, staring, not at the coffee, but at her. A prickle ran down Janelle's neck. She forced herself to smile, calling out, "Need help finding something?" The man didn't answer. He didn't even blink. Minutes ticked by. She pretended to tidy the counter, glancing up every few seconds. He was still there, motionless, his eyes fixed on her. By the time 20 minutes had passed, Janelle's nerves were fraying. She considered calling her manager, but part of her didn't want to look weak over what could be nothing more than a strange customer. Finally, she decided to approach him. Her heart pounded as she walked down the aisle, rehearsing what she'd say. But when she reached the coffee station, he was gone. She spun around, searching the aisles. Empty. She hurried to the front door and glanced outside, but the parking lot was deserted. No car, no footsteps, no sound. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Shaken, Janelle returned to the counter. The clock read 2:47 a.m. She stayed alert for the rest of her shift, every sound making her jump. Later, when the morning manager arrived, Janelle told him about the man. He raised an eyebrow, skeptical, and suggested they check the security cameras. Together, they rewound the footage. What she saw made her stomach drop. On the screen, the coffee station was empty. There was no man. Yet there she was, standing behind the counter, speaking into the air, nodding, smiling nervously. She watched herself walk down the aisle toward nothing, stop, and turn in confusion. Then it got worse. As she returned to the counter on the footage, something invisible seemed to yank her head back violently, jerking her hair upward. She hadn't even remembered it happening. Janelle quit that morning. She never came back to collect her final paycheck, and whenever she passed that lonely gas station again, she couldn't bring herself to look inside. Luis had been driving delivery trucks for nearly 15 years. The job suited him, long hours on the road, quiet nights, and the freedom of not being trapped behind a desk. The night shift was his favorite, traffic was lighter, the highways emptier, and the silence calming. But there was one stretch of road he hated, a foggy, tree-lined backroad about 20 miles from town. Drivers whispered about strange accidents there, about figures appearing out of nowhere. Luis dismissed it as superstition, until the night he saw her. It was just after 2 a.m. The fog was thick, rolling across the asphalt in ghostly waves. Luis gripped the wheel tighter, slowing down as his headlights struggled to cut through the white curtain. Then, out of nowhere, a figure appeared directly in his lane. He slammed the brakes, tires screeching as the truck lurched to a stop. His heart hammered against his ribs. In the beams of his headlights stood a little girl. She looked no older than 10, barefoot, wearing a pale dress that clung damply to her small frame. Her dark hair hung limp, her head bowed as if too heavy for her neck. Luis shoved the truck into park and jumped out. "Hey, are you okay? What are you doing out here?" His voice echoed strangely in the fog. But as he reached the front of the truck, the road was empty. No girl, just mist and silence. Confused, he spun around, scanning the ditches, the trees, the stretch of road behind him. Nothing. Shaking his head, he muttered, "I'm losing it," and climbed back into the cab. That's when the passenger door creaked open. Luis froze mid-motion, one foot still on the step. The smell of damp earth filled the truck. Slowly, his head turned. The seat beside him was empty, but the door hung slightly ajar. Then he heard it, a whisper. High-pitched, almost sing-song. "Can you take me home?" Every hair on his body stood on end. His breath caught in his throat, but instinct took over. He slammed the door shut, locked it, and floored the accelerator, the truck roaring as it tore down the road. The whisper lingered, faint, as though it came from right behind his ear. He didn't stop until the first hint of dawn broke over the horizon. When he reported to the depot, pale and shaken, his supervisor noticed immediately. Luis recounted everything in a trembling voice, expecting laughter or disbelief. But instead, the older man's expression hardened. "You saw her too?" he asked quietly. Luis blinked. "What do you mean, too?" The supervisor leaned in, voice low. "Dozens of drivers have seen her. Same stretch of road, same words. Some swerved to avoid her and crashed. Some quit after one sighting. And a few, well, they never made it back at all." Luis's stomach churned. He delivered his last packages that day, but the moment his shift ended, he walked out of the depot for good. The thought of driving that back road again, of hearing that childlike whisper in the dark, was something he knew he couldn't survive a second time.